Good evening, folks, and welcome to another episode of Disguise Coverage, part of the Cover One Sports Network. I am your host, Anthony Prohaska. Find me on the old Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro, two underscores, ANT. Give me a follow on the old Twitter, or if follows aren't your thing, that's completely fine. I will gladly accept donations from anyone who wants to send me back to Italy. I was in Italy last week. That's why there was no show last week. It was beautiful. It was fantastic. It was a good old time. I'll gladly go back. So whatever's easier. Again, I'm all about what, convenience and what's of ease to the viewer. So you want to give me a follow on Twitter? Cool. If not, you want to send me to Italy? That's fantastic. I'm down for that either way. I hate to let people down right off the bat from the show. Hey, Paul, there are no donuts. This is in line with the episode 2 weeks ago where people came and thought there would be pie and punch or cookies and punch. There was no pie or punch or cookies. I'm sorry to let you down. I also don't know who's spreading these false rumors about the pie and the cookies and the punch and the donuts and all those things. I see everybody starting to fill up in the live chat. I appreciate you guys coming through. No, John, there is no coffee. I'm a bad host, I guess. Maybe like a good show host, but not a good host of people to have over for an event. So I think I can kind of drop the ball there, but I'm not going to drop the ball on this show. I appreciate all you guys being here live. And Spin, if you want to send me to the North Pole, you could. That looks kind of cool. I've never been there, but it would be interesting. But I appreciate you guys being here on the live chat and being live with me here on this episode. We got a good one tonight, and I feel like that's a foolish statement because I think every show is a good one. But what we're going to get into tonight, we're going to talk a little Matt Milano. We are going to talk about someone in Matt Milano who I think is the best player on the Bills defense right now. We're going to talk about some other standouts on that Bills defense, guys who have really just not only played above and beyond, but who I think are rising above expectations and who have been key contributors to the defense, a defense that we're going to break down in a little bit on this episode in terms of their statistics and advanced metrics, a defense that is very, very good so far this year in 2021. We're also going to take a look at a couple of things on the offensive side of the ball so far this year, especially in regards to the offensive line. We also got a tremendous guest on the show tonight. We've got Cody Davis from the Locked On Texans podcast, and he's also a beat reporter for the Texans Wire. He was going to be joining us later in the show. He's now potentially going to be joining us earlier. He and I are in constant communication. He's just getting out of the Texans presser that happened a little earlier tonight. So good insight into the Bills' enemy this week with the Houston Texans in a nice little Week 4 clash. But before we really start and get into the meat of the episode. Oh, awesome comment there from Paul. Poyer and Hyde set the tone for the D's attitude 1,000%. I think on the field and off the field, their leadership, their performance, their play, their mental state sets the tone for not just the defense, for this entire team. Comment there from Michael, where's the Christmas music? I'm assuming that's in reference, I always get it wrong, in reference to the Christmas tree. Well, I'm terrible at this. There we go, the Christmas tree. But if you'll notice on the Christmas tree, I'm also seeing a lot of people showing or saying what up to me in the chat. I appreciate you guys. What's up? What's up? If you'll notice, the Christmas tree has changed colors for this episode. The garland is purple. And you also notice on the bookshelf here, got some colorful little light up pumpkins. Those are both courtesy of my wife. Again, as I mentioned, the tree will change colors with garland because it's themed. It's going to stay up all year round, but it's themed based on holiday or season. So a little purple garland in theme of Halloween. Going to have some orange garland potentially coming up. Maybe some more pumpkins. Maybe some pumpkin ornaments. Who knows? But yeah, I'm guessing that comment's in relation to the tree. But it's not just a Christmas tree. It's just well, it is, but we change things to switch it up. But again, I digress. Before we get into the meat of the episode, please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage, to the Cover One Network as a whole. Please drop a like for this video if you are on YouTube or whatever platform you are on. Again, I hate saying it every week. I hate shilling out for it or feeling like I am, but the rates and reviews and subscriptions and the likes, they go a tremendous, tremendous way in terms of getting myself and the entire Cover One team in front of more eyes, in front of more ears, to be able to continue to do what we love. Your support is tremendously appreciated. And so any rates and reviews and subscriptions and likes are tremendously, tremendously important for that. And also in terms of support and things that are good, You guys know we've been talking about it for the last several weeks. This show, as you see up there, man, I missed it again. I'm so terrible at this. You'll see in the upper right corner there, you see the One Pie Pizza logo. That's because this show, Disguised Coverage, is sponsored officially by One Pie Pizza, homemade blue cheese. They focus on doing one thing and doing that one thing right, and that's making great pizza. They are good people, good food. They're open Monday through Saturday, 11 to 8 or until sold out, and they will sell out from time to time because that's how good their pizza is. I love having them as a sponsor. I love being in partnership with One Pie Pizza, as does Cover One. And also a little treat here. You guys know, especially on Twitter, I love graphics. I love charts. And I'll use some charts during the show here from time to time. I don't have any tonight, but I do have one graphic. And I think this graphic really signifies the sponsorship of One Pie Pizza, why we have it, why I'm proud of it, why it's awesome. And I'm just going to throw up this graphic right now. That's the graphic. Look at that pizza. Look how delicious that pizza looks. Also, that little triangle in the middle. Some people think it's a play button when you get posted on Twitter. It's not. It's just the little table thingy that separates the pizza. Look at all that cheesy deliciousness. Look at the cup of char, pepperoni. Oh, it's just beautiful. There's also some homemade blue cheese there that you can't see. Look how good that is. Go out, get yourself some One Pie Pizza. The link to the menu can be found in the description of this episode, whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're listening on any of the audio platforms. You will find the link to the One Pie Pizza menu online. And they also just started getting active on Twitter. So there's the One Pie Pizza. It's at One Pie Pizza, Western New York on Twitter. Give them a follow. Check them out. Good people, good pizza, great food. I probably should just leave this graphic up the whole time, not even show my face. We can continue talking about the Bills. I could bring Cody on to talk about the Texans a little bit, but we should probably just leave this graphic. Actually, I'm joking, but I'm also kind of considering it. That would be fantastic. But look how good that pizza looked. Yeah, super proud to be in partnership with One Pie Pizza. Super proud to have that relationship. And super proud to get into this episode. I see a lot of the comments coming through here. I didn't expect is it really doughy pizza like that's super common in Western New York? No, I don't think it's super doughy. I just think it's super delicious. I don't even mean that as like a joke or like a pun. It's just like great. What's the crust like? Really good. Not doughy. Also not too crisp where it's like charred and you bite it and it just like cracks and crumbles. It's just well cooked, whether it's the dough, the pizza, the pepperoni, like the cheese. Oh, look at the comment here from Handsome Man. I love it. He says the best pizza we have ever had. The best pizza he's ever had. Paul says donuts and pizza. You know, I might bring donuts. Paul, you're killing me. I appreciate the joke, though. Real Christmas trees have boxes and boxes of donuts under them. Just saying. That's a good one. Get yourself some One Pie Pizza. Sponsor of the show. Love the relationship. They're fantastic. But again, I started to talk about how delicious the pizza was and how great the pizza is. And you know what else is great? The start to the year that the Buffalo Bills defense has had. I like that segue. I think that was a really professional segue. I hope you guys noticed. I'm going to take a sip of water here. As we start to dive into some of the things for the Buffalo Bills defense. This defense has been, Roman, have I considered working for Yelp? No, I have not in the least. I don't think that's my calling. I mean, if they wanted to send me places to eat free food, I'm all about it. But this Bills defense turned in a real standout performance in week one. I mentioned it in the show after the Steelers game, leading into the Miami game, that I think lost in the loss to the Steelers and the play of the offensive line and the struggles of the offense as a whole. I think lost in that was the strong performance of the defense. Several guys looked really good, and the defense as a whole performed really well, closer to that unit that we saw in 2019 that, no disrespect to Josh Allen and the offense in 2019, the defense was the largest part of the reason why the Bills were successful in 2019. Oh, I see the comment there from Dawn. You just noticed the Halloween cat. Yep. Little Halloween cat. Yep. With his little witch hat and a little pumpkin. Yep. 1,000%. We're all themed out over here. I play for keeps. Go big or go home. And that Bills defense in I love continuity and playing the long con. And the joke, that's fantastic. Halloween cats have boxes and boxes of pizza and donuts under them. Just saying. Well done, Paul. I'm going to give you a clap for that and a round of applause. But that 2019 defense for the Bills, I don't want to say carried the team, but they were the largest reason why the Bills were a playoff team in 2019. And in 2020, we saw the Bills defense regress a little bit for a number of reasons. I don't think they were as bad as a lot of stats and metrics or people will have you believe, especially, I'm a big subscriber to DVOA. They finished towards the top 10 in the league in 2020 in terms of defense. They got better as the year went on, and they got better as they got healthier. I think a lot of the reasons why the Bills defense struggled, I don't think this is a crazy thought, is because of the injuries they had. Tremaine Edmonds' shoulder injury, Matt Milano picking up an injury, Starla Tulele opting out, Tre'Davious White missed some times. We had some guys miss some time with COVID, and just a lot of chaos. In addition to the COVID offseason, Kirk Herbstreit, a college football analyst, made a tremendous point, I believe, before the Oregon-Ohio State game, talking about how he thought college defenses and defense as a whole in football would be better in 2020 than they were in 2019 because the COVID offseason and the lack of in-person practices really hurt defenses more than it did offenses. And his perspective on that and the context for that was that defenses are you have to read and react. And a lot of that reading and reacting comes from practice, live reps, building that continuity, getting on the same page physically, mentally, all that kind of stuff. And you can't do that when you're not in person with your teammates, building that chemistry and doing all those things. And he posited that that's a reason why we saw a lot of defenses struggle in football in 2020. Now here in 2021, he posited defenses will be better, so on and so forth. So I say that to say that's another reason why the Bills defense potentially could have struggled in 2020. But the bigger point that I wanted to connect was if we could take the 2020 Bills offense and the 2019 Bills defense and merge those two in a beautiful union of holy matrimony, we would have a hell of a team in 2021. And the offense struggled a bit against Pittsburgh. And despite the 35-0 victory against Miami, the offense still wasn't clicking on all cylinders like I think a lot of us would have hoped. But we seem to have turned that corner against Washington. The offense really picked things up. And we're going to talk about some things in the offense in a little bit. But again, I wanted to still focus on the defense because much like the Pittsburgh game and much like the Miami game, the Washington game, the Bills defense showed up once again. I think the 21 points that Washington put up is very misleading. Again, the first touchdown was just a great call and a great play by Antonio Gibson to take a 70-yard plus screen pass to the house. The second touchdown came from a really good run by Taylor Heineke when Washington got the ball inside Buffalo territory because of a special teams miscalculation, I suppose. And then the third touchdown kind of came more garbage timey, but also to Washington's credit was just a really great individual play. Logan Thomas is really big. He's athletic. He's got great hands. He's really turned himself into a weapon for Washington. He got one-on-one coverage with Micah Hyde in the end zone, pulled in a touchdown. Good throw from Taylor Heineke, touchdown Washington. I think the 21 points are a little misleading. The Bills defense really put on a strong performance against Washington as they have throughout this year. And I've got some stats. I love stats. I love advanced metrics. So I mentioned DVOA, and just for those who don't know, I use it a lot. Aaron Quinn is a big fan of it on the Cover One Buffalo show, and I am as well. So DVOA is basically a measure of efficiency by comparing success on every single play to the league average based on situation or opponent. Performance is adjusted for quality of opponent and situation. For example, red zone plays are worth more. I pulled that directly from Football Outsiders, wrote down the definition so I could give it to you here to make it as clear as day and as clear as possible. And it's basically a measure of how good are you in certain situations versus other defense in those similar types of situations. And it's weighted based on opponent, based by situation, all that stuff. It's a more true and accurate measure of how good a total team is, how good a defense is, how good an offense is, special teams, so on and so forth, all those things. I also like toxic differential lone wolf, but I think that is more Aaron's baby. I respect it. I like toxic differential a lot, but I don't want to take that away from him and, potentially steal his baby there a little bit. Just got a message from Cody, our guest tonight on the show. He will be popping in a little bit. So excited for that, to talk about some Bills Texans stuff. But this Bills defense, as we continue to talk about that, again, some of those advanced metrics and some of the things that they have started to do here and that they built. So they're second in total DVOA for defense, second versus the pass, fifth versus the run. They're also number one in Dave, which is a nice fun metrics. So Dave is DVOA, but adjusted for volatility early. Basically, it's used early in the year with the goal of getting the best idea of how good a team will be over the entire season. So it's skewed a little bit for what's going on early. They try to reduce variability, plot things out as you go forward the rest of the year. The Bills defense is also fourth in yards per game allowed at 252.7. They're fourth in passing yards per game allowed with 178. They're seventh in rushing yards per game allowed with 74.7. They're fourth in points per game allowed with 14.7. A lot of great metrics for the Bills defense. And again, it's a unit that I think has really stood out so far to start 2021, and we're going to get back to that. We're going to get into the Bills defense. We're going to get into why Matt Milano has been so great, why he's been the Bills' best defensive player so far. We're going to get into other defensive standouts and some metrics for the Bills defense, but going to pivot a little bit. As I mentioned, we have a really great guest on tonight's show. I mentioned that I just DM'd him because he just got back from doing, Texans beat reporter stuff and being at the Texans presser, and I'm going to pull him live into the stream now. We're going to welcome Mr. Cody Davis of the Locked On Texans podcast and beat reporter for the Texans Wire. Cody, thank you so much for being here. I'm super pumped that we're able to go back and forth and figure out a time that worked. And thank you so much for taking the time.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me on. Sorry for the delay, by the way, man. Houston traffic sometimes is crazy.
No, it's no worries. We got to figure out how to make things work all the time. So I appreciate you. Awesome. I appreciate you DMing me and be like, "Oh, I'm on my way. Traffic is wild." Like I was like, "No, it's cool. I appreciate it."
Yeah, I'm all about time, man. I know, with you being a reporter for the Bills, time is very important. So that's why I was texting you. Okay, I'm 30 minutes away, 10 minutes away, 5 minutes away, logging on.
No, you were awesome. I appreciate you. And how was the presser today? How was everything in terms of the Texans world? What's the state, kind of feeling and everything going on with the team right now?
Well, for the Houston Texans side of things, as I like to say, they don't want to give us too much of what's going on behind closed doors. But as you know, they're trying to get prepared for what is probably going to be arguably their most challenging game for this upcoming for this 2021 season, which of course taking on the 2-1 Buffalo Bills. And right now, it just seems like the team is trying to figure out how are they going to stop Josh Allen and this explosive offense. And to be honest with you, I'm not too sure how they're going to do that. As a matter of fact, on yesterday's show, the podcast that I host, Locked On Texans, me and my co-host John was doing a quick preview of the game. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the Buffalo Bills and I'm saying to myself, I'm really not sure if they're going to be able to slow down the Bills, because the last two games, if I'm not mistaken, you guys have averaged 39 points, recorded almost 800 and something total yards, 500 is coming in the passing. And that was against the Miami Dolphins and the Washington football team, who, of course, has better players on the defensive side of the ball than the Houston Texans do. So, they're just trying to figure out how they're going to stop this offense.
Oh, I'm going to segue right there. I know you and I went over some questions that we're going to dive into, but I'm going to pivot right there because you led off with an awesome topic. So how is the Texans defense going to try and stop Josh Allen, stop the Bills offense in general? I was taking a look at a lot of their metrics in terms of what and tendencies in terms of what they do on defense, with Lovie Smith being there as the defensive coordinator, that Tampa 2 coming in, but Houston has played a lot more man coverage than I would have anticipated, and they're still running that 2 high shell in that Lovie Smith type fashion, but they're not blitzing a lot, only 6%. 31st, which is 31st in the NFL. They run that 4-man rush 90% of the time, which is first in the NFL. And they also go more base defense. So they're in their traditional 4-3 42% of the time, and then they're in nickel 54% of the time. So a little more of a traditional defensive aspect there. How do they try and combat what the Bills do? I know Justin Reed has been banged up. I like him a lot, but he's kind of been day to day. He's somebody who I really liked coming out of the draft. And when he went to Houston, I thought it was a really good pickup. How does Houston, given their scheme and their personnel, how do they try and combat what the Bills do on offense come this Sunday?
Well, me personally, I think it all depends on the health of Justin Reed, a guy that you just finished talking to. And I reported today on the Texans Wire that Justin Reed was at practice today. And David Culley told us early this morning that Justin Reed, even though he was going to be participating at practice, he's still going to be the day-to-day. And Justin Reed is actually coming off a knee injury that he sustained during their week 2 loss against the Cleveland Browns, and he did not play during their during last week's loss against the Carolina Panthers. So with Justin Reed in the Texans defense, if he's able to play on Sunday, then you're going to see a little bit more of an aggressive Texans defense, a defense that their number one philosophy is to create takeaways. And when Justin Reed is there, it seems like the defense take on a new identity, because not only is he's the main one, of course, being the quarterback back there in the backfield, reading plays, being the person that's in his coverages and stuff. It seems like he's the main one that's going out there and try to create takeaways. Excuse me. The Texans on the season, they have 5 takeaways, and Justin Reed already has 3 of them. He has 2 interceptions and 1 forced fumble. That defense, especially that secondary, is very different when Justin Reed is out there on the field. When he's not out there on the field, then you get a situation like we saw against the Carolina Panthers where, Sam Darnold, he basically had his way with the Texans secondary, especially in that second half. At first it started off bad. Christian McCaffrey goes down, and, he was trying to get in his rhythm. But after the second half, after they made some adjustments, he had his way. And if Sam Darnold is able to do that to a Texans defense, a Texans secondary, without Justin Reed, I can only imagine how Josh Allen would go out there and just take apart that secondary. However, on the flip side of that, I know this might sound crazy, but the Texans defensive line has looked a lot better for this upcoming season. And I say it sounds crazy because I know when you subtract J.J. Watt from that defensive line, you probably might think, especially for you guys who haven't covered the Texans, you guys might not think that they do not have a decent defensive line, but they do. And Lovie Smith, since he has gotten here, not only as he is a guy who has put a heavy emphasis on creating takeaways, he's also a guy who wants to get after the quarterback. And we have seen that through the first 3 games of the regular season, especially how the way he's using guys like Jonathan Grenard, Jacob Martin, Ross Blacklock, the rookie Roy Lopez, Charles Omenihu. It seems like it doesn't matter who is lining up on that defensive front. That front 4 for the Houston Texans has looked really good. They don't have the sack numbers, but at times they have been able to create pressure on the quarterback. And he had made Trevor Lawrence, shaking his shoes. It has made Baker Mayfield shaking his shoes. And the same can be said for Sam Darnold as well. But of course, this defense is going to be extremely better if Justin Reed is able to play. If not, you guys probably going to put up at least 35 to 40.
I like Justin Reed a lot, and I love you giving us more insight into him, because I think it's unfortunate, but when teams are towards the bottom end or perceived to be at the bottom end, like good players, and this isn't like a crazy thought, like good players get overlooked or they get buried a little bit. And I think Justin Reed is a real standout. He made an impact on the Texans from the minute that he started as a rookie. He did. And he's continued to get better. And I think he's one of the better safeties in the league, like legitimately. And him not being there will be a huge blow to the Texans. You also mentioned somebody. So I was listening to the Locked On Texans podcast today, and you guys were going over guys that have been better from the addition of Lovie Smith and who's been standouts. And one of those guys you mentioned, you just spoke about a minute ago, was Jacob Martin, a former linebacker who Lovie moved to defensive end, who you believed has benefited the most from Lovie Smith taking over this defense and kind of putting his philosophy and scheme into things. And you mentioned him just a minute ago. So how does Jacob Martin and that front 4, because again, like I just mentioned, the metrics, they rush 4 90% of the time.
Oh yeah, it's
which
the
is
entire game.
Yep. Which again is a Lovie Smith like philosophy. He wants to just rush with 4 and then play coverage behind it, whether it's man or the Tampa 2. So they're rushing 4 90% of the time. They've only blitzed 6% of the time, which is 31st in the league. So the fact that they're only just rushing 4 or less, they're not blitzing, but as you mentioned, they're still able to generate pressure and get after the quarterback a little bit. My thought there is the Bills' offensive line has not been great. They got eaten alive by Pittsburgh. Granted, teams don't have the front that Pittsburgh has with Cam Hayward and TJ Watt and all that stuff. But we saw the Bills' offensive line struggle a little bit against Washington last week. Again, another vaunted defensive line. But what do you see from Jacob Martin in that Texans front 4 being able to generate some pressure against this Bills' offensive line? Because again, for me, I think that's one of the biggest weaknesses on this Bills team. And it's a genuine concern I have, especially in the interior with our guard positions, John Feliciano and Cody Ford. Cody Ford just last week alone gave up 12 pressures against the Washington football team, which is not great. So, I guess dive into that a little bit. What can Jacob Martin and that front 4 do to cause chaos, and how successful do you see them being against the Bills offensive line? That's a unit that struggled at times this year.
Well, in terms of Jacob Martin, first and foremost, he's very quick coming off the line of scrimmage. And that is how he win a lot of his battles. And like I mentioned, he doesn't have the sack numbers. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he only has like 1 or 2 on the season. But he has done a really good job creating pressure. And it's all because of his quickness and physicality as well, coming off the line of scrimmage. And that is something that Lovie Smith actually saw when he was studying film on Jacob Martin during his time when he was making that transition over to become the Texans defensive coordinator. And that is the reason why you mentioned that, you listened to Locked On Texans on yesterday. That's the main reason why, because when we had Anthony Weaver, it just seems like he wasn't using Jacob Martin correctly. And going back to last season, Jacob Martin seems like a guy who could be a person that could create havoc on the defensive front, but it seems like he wasn't in the right position. You go from linebacker to defensive end with Lovie Smith as the new defensive coordinator. That is why he's been successful. And I'm glad that you mentioned, the struggles that the Buffalo Bills are having with their interior offensive line. And that might be something the Texans can actually exploit, because the same reason why Jacob Martin has been successful is part of the reason why Ross Blacklock, a guy who is lining up on the inside, he is just as quick, if not faster, than Jacob Martin coming off that line of scrimmage, creating pressure on the opposing team's quarterback. So maybe that might be a way that can help the Texans stay competitive in this game. But that the defensive line is possibly their only hope. I'm just hoping that they make it competitive. That's it, man.
I sympathize and empathize with that so much as a Bills fan. Like, there were just so many games going in for so many years where it was just like, what are your thoughts for this weekend? And I was just like, I just hope we just don't get embarrassed. Like, I just want to be competitive. Like, that's all I really want.
But what I will say about you guys, about Buffalo, and I understand what you guys had, 17, 18 years of not making the playoffs.
Yeah, it's terrible. I don't want to talk about it. It's a lot.
but it seemed like, you guys, you start a rebuild don't work, you hit the reset button. You start a rebuild don't work, you hit the reset button. Yep. Here in Houston, it was like, we got this legendary player. We got this Pro Bowl player. We got this Hall of Fame player. We about to be good for the next 5 years. And in a matter of a year, it's like, okay, we might be the worst team in the league now.
That's a tremendous segue to the next thing I wanted to talk about. And also, I wanted to mention it too. You guys had a year. I thought the Texans were, I forget what year it was. You guys were so good. And then Matt Schaub goes down. And I felt like that derailed your whole year. And I think it was and then TJ Yates ends up starting a playoff game or one of those random.
Texans have had so many years like that. If I'm not mistaken, I want to say that was 2013 or 14.
Yeah, or in that range.
Was it 15? I want to say it was 14, because I think that year they ended up with the first pick, and that's when they drafted Clowney. Because I believe they started 2-0 or 3-0 or somewhere along those lines.
Yeah.
Matt Schaub goes down, and then they just went on like a 12-game losing streak after that.
And you guys, you mentioned Clowney and you mentioned JJ Watt earlier, and you guys have had such like legitimate, all the way going back to like Andre Johnson was arguably the best receiver in the NFL the entire time. There was a point where JJ Watt was the best NFL player in the world, not just defense. Like he could not be stopped anywhere that you put him. And now you're looking at this team and there is no Watt and Clowney's gone and there is no more Andre Johnson. But again, as you mentioned, like, well, that's cool. Like we got Deshaun Watson and we've got Will Fuller and we've got all these weapons. We got DeAndre Hopkins. And then it's like, nope, we're going to trade DeAndre Hopkins. And then it's all on Deshaun Watson, but that's okay because he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Now, I'm sorry to bring it up. I'm sorry to go through it.
Oh, it's good, man. At this point, I'm expecting it.
It's just a crazy like scenario. And, from your point of view and your perspective, do you see Deshaun Watson ever playing another snap in the NFL? And if you do, what team do you think he's playing it for?
From what I've been told, from the reports I've been able to gather, and of course we got to mention, his off-field struggles. That's what I call it because at the end of the day, we still don't know what's true and what's not true.
Yeah.
But from, what I've been told from the reports, been able to gather, the legal documents and everything, yes, he will continue his career in the NFL unless there's a whole nother side of the story we literally don't know about. And it comes to the point it's unforgivable. That's the only way I do not see Deshaun Watson ever playing in the NFL again. Now, on the flip side of that, the next question is, where is he going to play football? Of course, it's not going to be here in the city of Houston. Yeah, we still have some fans that's still hoping, but that ship has been sailed.
You think that, so that, and is that, sorry to interrupt you, but is him being out in Houston strictly because of the off the field stuff, or is it more tied to his personal feelings of just not wanting to play there anymore, which he started to do before the whole offseason scandal thing started?
It's actually a mixture of both. From what I've been told and from what my knowledge of it, because of course, prior to the allegations coming out, I mean, as you just mentioned, and it's funny that we're talking to you guys. I don't think we played you guys. I don't think the Texans played the Bills since they beat them in the playoffs of 2019, right?
I hate that game. So correct. We didn't play. I hated that game so much.
And I wanted to bring that up because it goes back to after the Texans beat the Bills, they seemed like a team that was trending upwards.
Correct.
Then of course you go into Kansas City, 24-0 lead, and then after they blew that lead, that's when everything started like raveling. You get rid of D-Hop. You go from, I think there was like 10-6 or 11-5 that year to 4-12 the opposite year. Deshaun Watson actually put on an MVP caliber performance throughout the year, and he has nothing to show for it but itself a little ribbon that says, "Congratulations, you're the NFL passing leader." And then, JJ is basically right. It's basically end all that he's going to be gone. And, I kind of felt for Deshaun at first because I've always been under the mindset, if you have a generational talent, especially someone as great as Deshaun, I don't care if it's in the MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, you need to, I'm not going to say cater to every single, I'm not going to say they need to cater to every single word that he wants, because another team in Houston did that and it still didn't work out. But I feel you need to at least work alongside him and be like, okay, we appreciate your feedback, but we decide to go in this direction. And I understand his frustration, but on the flip side of that, in the midst of the hiring process, we did not know what was brewing behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And that was, of course, these allegations coming out. Now it's a mixture of him, being frustrated with the organization and also him kind of not being accepted by this fan base anymore. Yes, he still has fans in the city of Houston, but his reputation is tarnished now. And you kind of, I hate to say feel bad for him because, once again, we still don't know what is true and what is not true, but it's everything that has been brewing over these past, I guess you can call it 12 months from the time he signed his contract. And, at the time, we take a look at everything the Texans did, getting rid of D-Hop, hitting the reset, starting the rebuild, of course, everybody, including myself as a reporter, we pointed the fan at the Texans. Of course, you heard the Jack Easterby stories and, the Bill O'Brien stories, of course, we pointed the fingers at the organization, but then on the flip side, you got him getting himself in this weird situation off the field to the point it's like, man, maybe this is why the Texans did not want to value your opinion to go out and get an Eric Bieniemy or, go out and get this player, go out and get that general manager. Everything kind of made sense mid-March when the first allegation dropped. And this is like, it's kind of crazy because, Deshaun, unfortunately, isn't the first and he won't be the last athlete to get in trouble. But it's like, can you name me an athlete that has 22, 24 counts against him? Plus, not only that, and I say this, and this also what makes the whole Deshaun Watson situation crazy. Every single time an athlete get in trouble, 9 times out of 10, they are in good standings with their organization. They want to play. They want to be out there on the court. They want to be out there on the diamond. They want to be out there on the football field, on the ice. But he doesn't. He was already talking about he was going to sit out prior to these allegations. Now that the allegations drop, it's a mixture of, hey, I don't want to play, and also we don't want you out there representing our brand with you having these off-field issues. Now, I say all that to say, to answer your question, where do I see him playing next year? If I had to pick, I would have to say Miami, only because they have the package that Nick Caserio and the Texans want.
Okay.
That is a plethora of draft picks, 1 or 2 young players who can actually help their rebuild. I've been pushing for this trade ever since Deshaun said he wanted out. You bring him to Miami, you get your draft picks. Of course, that's going to have to bring in Tua. You're going to have to include Tua in that package, to give you a quarterback to build around, or at least a quarterback that can actually be in competition to be the next franchise quarterback, which I think Tua will blow Davis Mills out the water, by the way. And then plus, I'm also a believer in Tua. I just think Tua need to get healthy and really be in the right situation in order to be the player we all thought he could be coming out of college. But yeah, that's the only team that I can really see taking the chance on Deshaun. And I know prior to the draft, there were a lot of teams out there trying to get Deshaun. Yeah. But now it's like they moved on. Like you take a look at the Denver Broncos, it seems like they had struck gold with Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah. You take a look at, of course, San Francisco. If things don't work out with Jimmy G, then they got Trey Lance back there. The New York Jets, I don't see them giving up on Zach Wilson too soon, even though he's struggling right now. I want to say maybe Chicago, and this is just me wishful thinking. Maybe Fields. Chicago, give us Fields back. But then again, I don't even know if that's going to be realistic because Fields shares the same agent as Deshaun. Oh, right now the Texans and Deshaun agent and stuff are not on the same page. So, plus I don't see Justin Fields, coming to Houston, just given that. So that's the only team that I can honestly see still willing to give up the package that the Texans want for Deshaun. Yep. And B, that's probably the only team who would still want Deshaun a part of their organization.
You hit a very interesting point with that. First of all, I love everything you said. I love how I was able to interrupt you mid-thought and you still were able to bring it full circle. Well done, you're a pro. I appreciate you. You mentioned the package that Miami could give and young players, draft picks. They have the draft capital. They've got the players. You mentioned Tua, who Bills fans are very familiar with and love to. I'm higher on him than I think most of Bills Mafia is. I get that you are a little higher on him as well, but a lot of Bills fans just like to rip him and tear him apart and make jokes and everything. But how would you spoke on it a little bit. If you were, so say that trade happens, right? Deshaun goes to Miami and Tua comes back as part of a package. Do you think the organization would be confident in Tua being like, okay, now we've got our young quarterback, we can start this rebuild? Or is Tua would he be more of like a young bridge quarterback and they're still looking for that franchise guy?
I think so. Every time we try to get information about what they think about, this quarterback, or that quarterback over there. Most likely, I asked a question about Tua. Of course, Nick Caserio in general, they don't really share no type of information, but I think Tua will be. And I say that because, you know, when you take a look at the Texans, I think he'll have a little bit more success here in Houston because one, the offensive line here is, you know, I would want to say it's better. You know, we have Laramie Tunsil, you got Titus Howard, Justin Britt, you know, those three guys can excel in pass coverage. Then you got guys on the right side of that offensive line that's, you know, they're okay with it, but they get the job done.
Yeah.
If Tua comes to Houston, I think not only would the Texans see him as a guy who could potentially be their franchise player, but it might be one of those situations where all he needs is a new change of scenery. Because remember, when he got there was a lot of pressure on him, but a lot of people fail to realize that Tua was coming off a devastating hip injury.
Very true.
And I'm actually surprised to see him playing as good as he's been since that hip injury. Then he goes through the whole, you're starting 1 week, you're not starting 1 week, you're going to start you for 2 games, we're going to pull you out. And then this year, you know, he goes through a really good training camp. I got a guy out there I talk to a lot of times just to keep dabs on whether or not, you know, they're going to trade for Tua. And they say, you know, Tua has looked really good throughout OTAs, training camp. But every single time he's coming to the podium, it's, do you feel that this team is fully confident in you? And I'm pretty sure you saw, you know, prior to the season starting, Miami had the whole, they're about to pull a trigger on Deshaun, and, you know, the coach had to go in there and vow his commitment to Tua and all that other stuff.
Even before the draft, when they asked Jalen Waddle coming out, like, oh, who would you rather, before he got drafted,
exactly.
Miami, would you rather play with Tua or Matt Jones? He was like, oh, Matt Jones.
Exactly. So it seems like it's a mixture of him, you know, not being 100% healthy and not having the full support of the organization. And then he goes out there, you know, he has a pretty decent first game. Then he get hurt again. And, you know, it's just a lot of questions surrounding Tua. I do believe, you know, whether or not he comes to Houston or not, I do believe at some point Miami might potentially move on from him. And it's going to be one of them situations where, you know, he just find himself in a better situation, a better opportunity, a new scenery to the point he could flourish into that talent that I guess you and I, because a lot of people don't think, but
correct.
You and I can, you know know that he could become in this league. And, you know, because of the situation that's going on with Deshaun, I'm hoping that's here in Houston, because not only do they have a solid offensive line, we have a very good quarterback coach in Pep Hamilton. I mean, this is a guy who has spent time coaching Andrew Luck. We remember how good Andrew Luck was in Indianapolis. This is a guy who coached Justin Herbert. And we saw how good Justin Herbert has been ever since he became the starter in week 2 of last year. And this is a guy who has worked on alongside a guy that you guys are familiar with that I wish he was playing on Sunday. Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor talked about, you know, just being with Pep Hamilton over the last 2 years, how he has helped him come close to the player that he was in Buffalo. Now we're seeing him start to gain some attraction with the rookie quarterback that we have here in Davis Mills. So, you know, pairing him alongside Pep Hamilton, you give him an offensive line and the offensive weapons that he's going to be playing with. It's not going to be as good as Miami, but it's a little bit decent. And I think, you know, if he comes here, he established chemistry with guys like Anthony Miller, Nico Collins, you know, the tight end core that we have in Farrell Brown. He could find some success here.
Beautiful answer. I love the multi-team perspective you got going on. You got the Texans inside, a little Miami inside, Tua knowledge. I love it. You know, we'll stick with the offensive side of the ball as we, you know, start to wind down here, you know, on your time here, which has been awesome. You mentioned Davis Mills. We'll talk about the Houston offense a little bit. So Davis Mills, Stanford quarterback, 3rd round pick in this year's draft. I didn't realize that he was a 5-star recruit. He was the top QB in the high school class coming out. I did not think that or know that, but here he is thrust into the starting spot because Tyrod Taylor, who
he was playing so good. Oh,
week 1 looked crazy good. Everybody wanted to, again, it's week 1, yada, yada, but everybody wanted to write off the Texans. God knows how many people in their survivor pools were like, oh yeah, I'm taking the Jags because the Texans are going to be terrible. And then Tyrod comes out and just balls out when he gets hurt. Davis Mills steps in. what can we expect from Davis Mills? What can we expect from this Texans offense? What weaponry do they have left? And, how are they going to try and move the ball against the Bills?
To be honest with you, that is possibly their biggest question coming into this game, because you look at Davis Mills, he put on a decent performance. I mean, I actually compared his week 3 performance to other rookies who started around the NFL. If I'm not mistaken, he might have had the best performance, if not second best, only behind Mac Jones, who looked very good, by the way. I did not see Mac Jones starting off the season this solid.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
But, going back to Davis Mills, but at the same time, David Culley, Tim Kelly, and the Houston Texans kind of held this team back because they was a little bit too conservative in their play calling. And there was times where they should have attacked the Carolina Panthers with their passing game, but they decided to rely on a run game that was so inefficient and that was so disappointing. And even after the game, early on this week, and even today, David Culley talked about that they actually made a mistake by putting Davis Mills in a box and not fully trusting him. Now, coming into this game, which I think might be a little bit of a mistake given the Bills defense, they are going to ease up off of him a little bit. Let him go out there and actually play as if Tyrod Taylor was out there on the field. Now, that is what they're, telling us. We don't really know. We know what is actually going on in those private meetings, especially since the Texans want to be the Patriots 2.0 so bad. And the Patriots don't share type of information. But from what we've been told, as what was it? We talked to David Culley about 8 hours ago. He said that they're going to go out there and trust Davis Mills and actually let him go out there and run the offense. Okay. Once again, I don't think that's a good idea, because at the end of the day, he is not only a rookie quarterback, but he's a project quarterback that you got in the 3rd round. And you just mentioned that he was the top quarterback coming out of high school. That is true, but a knee injury derailed his college career. And this is a guy who only played like 14 or 15 college games in the span of 3 years. If you ask me, I think he would have been better off going back to school, especially the way this quarterback class has played to start the college season. But once again, 3rd round quarterback, a project quarterback, you're going up against a very good defense in the Buffalo Bills, especially the front 7 the Bills have. I mean, they have 9 or 10 sacks to start off the year.
Seventh in the league with 9 sacks. And
Davis Mills has already showed one of his biggest weaknesses is not being able to, read the blitz. He got sacked 4 times in that game against Carolina. He's been sacked 5 times ever since he's been out there to sub in for Tyrod Taylor. And I want to say 3 out of those 5 sacks was basically his fault for not being able to pick up the blitz. So I really don't know what to expect from this offense. I would say if Davis Mills is going to get into a groove, don't be surprised if you see him targeting Brandon Cooks a lot. I've always felt Brandon Cooks has been one of the most underrated players in this league, and he's shown it again this year. I believe he's 5th in the league in receiving yards and
3rd. He's 3rd in receiving yards, 3rd in receiving yards, and he's 3rd in receptions.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I don't know how he's able to do it, especially with Davis Mills throwing him the ball. At the matter of fact, about an hour or so ago before I jumped on, the last guy we spoke to was Davis Mills, and Davis Mills talked about after practice that he was able to get some extra work in with Brandon Cooks, and it seems like that's been his favorite target. I don't blame him. That'd be my favorite target as well.
Same.
But what I would say, the receiving core, if Davis Mills can get the ball out, the receiving core is something that Buffalo might have to keep their eyes on, because in the midst of having Brandon Cooks, Anthony Miller, the guy that the Texans traded from Chicago, he looked really good in his debut that took place against the Panthers. And that is another guy, seems like Davis Mills is going to favor a lot for this upcoming game. But that's the only way I can see the Texans creating anything on offense. The run game has been so inefficient. And to be honest with you, I've been so disappointed in the run game, because I thought, Mark Ingram has been fine. But David Johnson, come on now. Every time he steps on the field, Texans fans, they want to start a riot.
Well, yeah, even more so, because it's like we traded D-Hop for this.
Exactly. You see, I ain't saying it because I ain't want it to come out of my mouth.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So, you traded D-Hop for that. I was really excited for his Philip Lindsay guy, first 2 years in Denver, rushed for over 2,000, had a down year last year. I thought that was only a one-off year, especially with him going back and forth with the carries with Melvin Gordon, but he has not looked good in the run game at all. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the Texans play the Bills on Sunday, because it's not like you have a quarterback that you can say, okay, we're going to just go out here, trust you, and let you lead us to a victory, or at least keep us competitive, because once again, we still don't know what to expect from Davis. But on the flip side, can't really depend on your run game because that's been so inefficient.
Man, yeah, you touched on so many points that I love. Yeah, I think Brandon Cooks is legit. He's another guy who I think, we talked about Justin Reed on the defense. Cooks is a solid receiver. He really has been everywhere he's gone, all the way back to New Orleans and then going to New England and now being here with Houston. But I think he gets overshadowed in the grand scheme of the league because, again, he plays on the Texans and people, don't want to pay attention, but he's having a sneaky good year. I love that you touched on the backfield, because that was one that I thought was so weird coming into this season. It was like, okay, we traded for David Johnson. All right, cool. We're going to sign Mark Ingram. Okay, cool. We're going to sign Philip Lindsay. And I think Rex Burkhead is also there.
Yeah, they're 53-man roster. They kept 5 running backs.
Wild.
5. And in addition to that, they also kept Scotty Phillips, who I think might be the second best running back, but he's an unproven guy. He had a really good preseason. I believe he had like a couple carries last year and was able to, and he actually moved the chain. But for some reason, I was so irritated because they left him inactive the first 2 games of the season. They activated him last week and just used him for special teams. I'm like, if you're going to use the run game, especially a team that has nothing to lose, you might as well see what you have in Scotty Phillips.
Oh, 1,000%. See what you got out of the young guys instead. It's not like you're going to lean on Mark Ingram for a potential rebuild or like reboot of the franchise. So yeah, 1,000%.
Exactly.
And, I love the Anthony Miller talk. He was somebody I really liked coming out of Memphis and coming in out of the into the draft. And then I thought he would fit in Chicago. He gets traded to Houston, opportunity for more playing time. Nice to see if he can, catch on for you guys there. And yeah, you touched on everything on the offense, all in, in addition to talking, when we talked about Tua, you talked about the offensive line and now the run game and Davis Mills and Brandon Cooks. And it's going to be, I think it's a game that, you mentioned it, just trying to kind of like stay in it for Houston. I think a lot of Bills fans are assuming, oh, this is going to be a blowout. We're going to destroy them. But I think Houston has, I don't like to
if Tyrod was playing, I would say yes. Them 6 quarters Tyrod Taylor had, man. I'm not going to lie. I was getting excited.
Dude, he can. I will always be forever happy for Tyrod. Like he was the quarterback of the team that broke the drought, got us to the playoffs. I know he had his limitations, but I will forever root for him. And I saw him balling out, and I had Red Zone on my computer as I was watching the Bills game, and they just kept going red alert as he was just touchdown. Deep throw to Brandon Cooks, touchdown.
He looked so good. You just don't understand, like that Cleveland game, and it happened when he ran, for his 15-yard touchdown, put us up 14-7. And I'm sitting here because I don't travel. I cover the game from home, and I'm sitting here. I'm like, if they beat Cleveland and we start the season 2-0,
Tyrod's the savior.
Man, like, oh my God, when he went down with that hamstring, and I've always rooted for Tyrod. I always thought, and I never understood why he always got the short end of the stick wherever he went. I just thought for a brief second that this could actually be an opportunity for him, not just for this year, but, let's say for the next year or so. So, if you don't, get Tua back in the trade and, the quarterbacks that look like they're going to come out of this year's draft don't look like, they ain't going to be worth nothing. I understand it's still early, but, Spencer Rattler, I'm like, come on, man, You are not looking like the Heisman Trophy.
No, Heisman
that we
favorite.
Thought.
No, sir.
Sam Howell. What? You telling me that's the best you can do? Like
a little bit. Not good in Carolina.
Yeah, the only quarterback that I've liked so far is Bryce Young, and he ain't coming out this year.
No.
So he got a whole nother year. So I'm like, maybe, but I say all that to say, keeping Tyrod, maybe they could have kept Tyrod for the next 2-3 years or whatever, just to keep the Texans relevant. And to see him go down, man, I hurt. I don't, as a reporter, I don't hurt too many times, but that was a time I was just like, oh,
I gotcha.
That one got me.
It hurt me too. And especially too for like a team you're covering and the fan base, like everything is so dark and gloomy and doom coming into the season. And then you have a really good week 1 performance. And then you're coming into week 2 against a team that I don't even want to say was like a dark horse, but like Cleveland was like a sexy pick for so many.
Oh, it was a favorite.
1,000%. And you're up 14-7 all of a sudden. And it's like, maybe last week wasn't because we played Jacksonville. Maybe last week wasn't a fluke. Like, look what we can do. And then, yeah, Tyrod gets hurt. So you lose your QB who had done so much for you. And especially, again, like you mentioned, like a guy for Tyrod who, again, like I recognize his limitations when he was with Buffalo and his limitations still, but he's made so many progressions in his game and the type of player that he is. And yeah, I saw him go down and my heart hurt for him. I'm sure not as much as yours, but yeah, he'll always have a special place in my heart. And I wanted to see both these last 2 weeks were supposed to be like Bills quarterback homecoming games in Buffalo. We were supposed to see Ryan Fitzpatrick last week for Washington. We were supposed to see Tyrod.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that one.
And now it's like there's some weird curse that like they couldn't come back and play here. And Tyrod definitely would have. I wanted to see Tyrod take the field. I think he would have gotten a really warm reception from the Bills fans there because they appreciate what he did for this franchise. And yeah, it sucks and it's unfortunate. But what didn't suck and what wasn't unfortunate was having you on the show, man. You were amazing. I knew you
awesome,
would be.
My guy.
I every week I always try to bring someone in from one of the teams that the Bills are playing, and I started my Texans research last week and came across you on Twitter, and then some of your writings on the Texans Wire, and then checking you out on Locked On Texans, and I was like, I think this guy's going to be really great. And then we vibed a little in the DM, and here you are. I appreciate you taking the time. I know, you're an hour behind and you got your show. We were trying to figure out a way to make it work. You stayed even longer than we initially thought. And again, you were tremendous in every way. So much insight and overall just football knowledge. Yeah, Jason over here in the chat throwing it up. Awesome guest indeed. Hell yeah, Jason. Yeah,
awesome, Cody, man. Appreciate you, Jason.
You were tremendous. There were a ton of comments coming through just talking about like your insight and your knowledge, just not just of the Texans, but of like everything you were saying as a whole in regards to the game. So I appreciate you so much for coming on, and why don't you, tell all the people where they can find you, what you do, break it all down for us, and let everybody know.
Yes, sir. Well, you guys already know, name Cody Davis. You can follow me on Twitter at Cody Davis _24. Once again, that's Cody COTY DAVIS _24. Why 24? Because Kobe Bryant is my GOAT. Gotta throw that in there. Houston Texans beat reporter for
I was
USA.
Definitely wondering why there was a 24. I was like,
a lot of people do. A lot of people do. Of course, people that know, they're like, oh, he go with the Kobe stuff again. But once again, the 24 is for my guy Kobe. You can follow my work on everything regarding the Houston Texans over at USA Today, Texans Wire, and of course every single day on the Locked On Podcast Network on Locked On Texans with my guy, the other great reporter that I have on the opposite side of me every single day, Johnson Sports Guy Hickman. Be sure to give him a follow as well. You can listen to our podcast on all your favorite podcast streaming services, and you can also watch us as well on YouTube. So if you like this, you will love Locked On Texans. Go check us out, hit subscribe, talk trash about us this weekend. I'm pretty sure, you probably hit me up in the DMs or whatnot, telling me how bad the Texans look. I'm telling you, it's the injuries. If Tyrod was playing, this would be a better game.
That's fair. I've never, and you know what? We'll chat and we'll go back and forth. I've felt so much what it's like to be on the short end of the stick as a Bills fan. You will never see me talk smack or trash to anybody or like talk down someone's team. Like plus I'm also very superstitious, and I feel like the moment I'm like, oh, your team sucks, ha ha ha, like the next week, like Josh Allen's gonna like retire and the Bills are like done. So I'm just I'm never safe in anything. But yeah, Cody, you were awesome, and everybody watching this episode, give Cody a follow. I think it's always great, even if you're a fan of the Bills, you're not a fan of the Texans, whatever. It's great to always be up to date with knowledge and insight from every team in the NFL. And Cody, you're one of the go-to guys for the Houston Texans, and you're a really good dude, and you're a good follower, and you know football in general. You post good
Oh,
football
yeah.
stuff in general. So yeah,
Appreciate you.
again,
Appreciate you,
thank you
man.
for I appreciate you. Appreciate you coming by. And again, you got a ton of love in the chat. I thank you so much for coming by and taking the time out, and have fun recording your episode tonight and doing you. And I appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Sounds good. Appreciate you, my guy.
Hell yeah. Later, Cody. I appreciate you, man. Man, what a absolute fantastic guest Cody was. I'm glad you guys were able to give him the props and the love that he deserves in the chat. Somebody just, again, he added a lot of insight to this Bills-Texans game from that Texans perspective. And again, I think, he hit on it. I don't think this is a game where, I hate saying it because I'm so superstitious, but I don't think this is a game that the Bills lose. But the Texans do have some players, and they are a team that has to look to their young talent as they start to move forward in this rebuild without Deshaun Watson. So it's good to know. And oh, awesome, Paul. Great comment there. Yeah, good guest. Thank you for inviting him. And oh man, look at all these people and the good comments. Another one from Jason. Thank you. I appreciate that. You guys always find really good guests to break down the opposing team. That's what we aim for. We at Cover One, I think, are the best when it comes down to breaking the X's and O's in the context of the Bills and football in general. So when we look for guests, that's what we kind of look for, that mirror image. We want guests that are going to bring analysis and understanding of the game and add context to you guys and to us and just help us be better as a whole. So I appreciate you guys recognizing that. And Lone Wolf, who's my KC guest? Oh, Hank Stram. That would be crazy. Yeah, I don't know who my KC guest is. No, I kind of do. I don't want to say it, but it's going to be hopefully good. Knock on wood and fingers crossed and fingers crossed. Yeah, awesome comment there from Puka. It's great to hear about the opponent and the matchups, 1,000%. So we were initially going to do this on the back end, but I love that Cody was able to make the time earlier, and so we could get this, matchup breakdown to start off with. He added so much insight. It's great to hear that. And now we're going to kind of pivot a little bit to what I started talking about before Cody joined us and added so much insight, the Bills defense and Matt Milano. So again, just to reiterate, I'm just going to go over some raw stats and some advanced metrics at the same time here. So the Bills, second in total DVOA for defense overall, second versus the pass, fifth versus the rush. They are fourth in yards allowed per game. They are fourth in passing yards per game allowed, seventh in rushing yards per game allowed. They're fourth in points per game allowed with 14.7. They're tied for third in the NFL in takeaways with 6, 3 interceptions, 3 fumble recoveries. I think we all know that should be more. The Bills have had several takeaways this year, unfortunately, that were called back due to garbage penalties, aka the flag that was thrown on Tre'Davious White against Pittsburgh. I think the one that was even more egregious was the call on Tremaine Edmonds against Washington that Taron Johnson intercepted. I don't know how that was pass interference or whatever they called on Tremaine Edmonds. I watched it on the All-22 over and over. It was a great, clean play from Tremaine Edmonds. So we should have even more takeaways than we do. And like I mentioned in talking about with Cody, and Cody mentioned it as well because he's done his research on the Bills being the opponent this week. The Bills are 7th in the NFL in sacks with 9. They were a better pressure-generating team last year than people gave them credit for. I think a lot of fans just looked at the sack numbers and didn't really look at everything as a whole. And they're getting home this year, 7th in the league in sacks with 9. Again, we've only played 3 games, so the fact that we're averaging about 3 sacks a game is tremendous. And really good comment here from Dylan. I was at the game, and it was weird how good the defense was because the pass rush visually did not seem to be there on a lot of plays. That's a fair point. The pass rush was weird against Washington. I think also what contributed to that, Taylor Heineke, as Aaron Quinn mentioned on the postgame, he's really slippery in the pocket, and he's mobile, and he's athletic, and he got out of a lot of jams in the backfield. Going back and watching the All-22 and scouring that, Epinesa did a good job. Rousseau, Jerry Hughes had a bunch of good rushes, but Heineke was able to escape and make the rush look less effective than it was. Awesome comment from Jason there with the pass rush kicking up. I think our interception numbers jump back up to where they were in 2019. We saw the pressure and the coverage work really well in tandem against Washington. We saw the Jordan Poyer interception, the Micah Hyde interception. Again, Taron Johnson's should have counted. Unfortunately, it did not. Love the comment here from Paul. The Bills are the most complete team in the NFL. Even scarier when at their best, they may field the best unit on both sides of the ball. They potentially could. We know what the offense can do. And awesome comment here from Mark. I love data and metrics. 2.49 seconds to get to the quarterback last year. They just didn't bring him down. They were getting to the quarterback quick. They just couldn't get home. They couldn't bring him down, like he said. And that's where Group comes in, somebody who is known to be able to clean up. He can use that length. AJ Epinesa has been able to do that as well. We've seen improvements from Ed Oliver. We've even seen some pass rush from Star Lotulelei. So the defense has really kicked up a lot. And part of the reason why I think they've kicked up is a healthy, again, knock on wood, healthy Matt Milano. He has been the best player on this Bills defense. And again, just to throw some more numbers and metrics. I know fans like to tear apart PFF because they don't like PFF for a variety of reasons, so on and so forth. Bills fans love to trash it, but it's a good metric for analyzing certain positions, certain players based on grading and based on situations. And going off of PFF, Matt Milano is the second-ranked linebacker in overall defense grade on PFF. Second. Again, not taking in edge linebackers, but overall linebackers, like coverage linebackers, drop linebackers. Second for PFF right now in overall defensive grade. He's 18th in run defense, second in pass rush, 5th in coverage grade, 6th in man coverage, 12th in zone. He's second in total pressures for linebackers. So again, off-ball linebackers, second in total pressures. He's tied for 16th in stops. And just for a little positional breakdown, he's got 23 snaps considered defensive line snaps, 132 box snaps, 16 snaps in the slot, 1 at free safety, 1 at corner. As Dylan mentioned here, that contract was such a steal. Yeah, he kind of took a bit of a little, maybe a hometown friendly discount, potentially maybe if we're reading between the lines, maybe he didn't get the offer out on the open market that he wanted to. But either way, he came back at a very affordable deal. Great contract. Great thing that we were being able to work that out with Milano and bring him back. And he's been tremendous. And has been, Bez says there, Milano's been everywhere the first 3 games. He really has been. And Eric Turner had a great point on Twitter. We were talking about Milano the other day. What Milano has been doing this year that we've seen so far in the first 3 weeks, he's matching up a lot on linebackers, on tight ends and running backs in both in zone, but also in kind of like man one-on-one scenarios. Him doing that allows more freedom for Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer and for the defense as a whole. So in a vacuum, just how he plays as an individual player, he's very good as an off-ball linebacker, just very good as a defensive player in general. But he's even better for this defense because of his athleticism, his versatility, his understanding of the game and the defense and the role that he's able to play. He allows the rest of the Bills defenders to play with more freedom. He allows, no pun intended, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer to disguise coverage easier because of their safety alignments and what they do on the back end. He makes Tremaine Edmonds a better player. He makes the corners a better player because they don't have to cover as much ground or watch out for certain things because he can erase. He's been that this year. He has been a disruptor and he has been an eraser. When he, again, I mentioned second in total pressures for off-ball linebackers. We've seen him just come out and outright blitz, or we've seen him come on those green dog blitzes, which are the blitzes where you've got maybe the tight end or running back in man coverage coming out of the backfield. They stay into block, so you blitz. That's a green dog. Milano gets the quarterback with that. He's almost impossible for running backs to block, especially smaller backs. He's able to get around or go through them. He's been, someone said there, Milano gave us a gift. Glad to see him play for us. Milano has been a gift. The gift is him. He's been just so great for this Bills defense. And I saw a comment earlier, Lone Wolf, saying that Edmonds was number 1. Haha. I get it. Edmonds has been better this year. I know he's not the player yet that everyone wants him to be. He is not Luke Kuechly like so many people thought he was going to be early in his career. Edmonds has played better this year. I sent a tweet out the other day. I still think his biggest areas of concern or needs for improvement are his angles to the ball carrier. And in relation to that, he either over pursues or under pursues at times. But also, Eric Turner and I, again, when we did the film room last night, we were talking about it offline. He's big and he's athletic, but also it's hard for him to have change of direction because of how big he is, because of how long his legs are. So sometimes he over pursues and under pursues because of, his stop-start ability and change of direction that he's not the best at. So he is athletic and he is huge and he is fast and agile and all those things. But there are some things that, work to his disadvantage at times. But regardless of that, he's made a lot of quality plays this year, especially in that Washington game. He had a lot of good coverage reps that didn't get noticed. He took away Logan Thomas a lot in that middle of the field. Logan Thomas is a really good tight end in today's NFL. He had that play, the deflection that was a horrible call that should have led to the Taron Johnson interception. And, good comment here from Mark. Edmonds great in coverage, not great at getting off blocks. Better this year, I think. He has been better at getting off blocks this year. I've scoured the all 22, watching all the levels on defense, especially the Washington game. He's been better at getting off blocks this year. It'll be nice to see him, again, continue to improve on his pursuit angles and angles to the football, but he has been improved this year. I think what's also unfortunate for Tremaine Edmonds is that, again, he plays next to Matt Milano, who is the best linebacker on this team and right now the best defender on this entire team. Milano's been tremendous, but don't let that take away from what Tremaine Edmonds has been able to do. And continuing in that vein, talking about defense, I want to switch a little bit and talk about some of the Bills' defensive standouts thus far. And another one I got is Taron Johnson. Before that, I want to pull up this comment from Ben here. Edmonds also has had more help from the D-line. They're keeping him clean more often, allowing him to get to where he needs to be. Starla Tulele, man, and Ed Oliver a bit too, and Groot a little bit. Another defensive standout that I want to pull out has been Taron Johnson. Taron Johnson, 18th best coverage grade amongst all corners in the NFL per PFF. He has the second most in coverage slot snaps in the NFL at 98. He has the second most slot snaps overall at 142. He's only giving up, this is a really nice one. He's only giving up 0.76 yards per snap in the slot. Okay, again, 0.76 yards per snap in the slot. For reference, Jalen Ramsey is giving up 0.95 yards per snap in the slot. Jalen Ramsey goes everywhere. He plays in the slot, and it's a decent sample size. He's had 78 snaps in the slot, so he's giving up almost 0.2 yards more per snap than Taron Johnson. And Mike Hilton for the Bengals, really good slot corner previously with the Steelers. He has 109 snaps in the slot, coverage snaps in the slot. He's given up 0.94 yards per snap in the slot. So Taron Johnson, really strong year so far, continuing on the playmaking year that he had last year in 2020. And to continue on some more advanced metrics there, he's tied for 5th in stops. He's 25th in overall defense grade for all corners, not just slot corners. And the role that he plays on this team, we know the Bills are a nickel defense. That is their primary formation. They're in it around or above 70% of the time. That is their defense. Nickel is base. We've said it so much. But he functions not only as a slot corner and as a coverage guy, but he functions like a third linebacker. His ability to come up and fill gaps and fill rush lanes in the run game, but also in the pass, his ability to blitz, his ability to come up and take on blockers, whether it's a tight end or a running back or offensive lineman, his ability to stay strong at the point of attack and be physical and come up and run support in addition to coverage on the back end. He's been tremendous for this Bills defense. He had a rough start to 2020 and he made progress as the year went along. We know, the big interceptions against Pittsburgh and against Baltimore, but he's somebody who I think has had a really good year. I still think he's going to be vulnerable in certain man coverage situations. I still don't want to see him in one-on-one coverage against Tyreek Hill or Mecole Hardman in the slot. And he had a couple snaps against Washington where he did get beat, but the ball just didn't get thrown his way. But Taron Johnson, to me, has been the second best defender on this Bills team. I think it's debatable. I think you can make the case for him or several other players that I'm about to get to. But Taron Johnson has been really, really, really good. I'm seeing a lot of comments come through. Oh, Lone Wolf, yeah, I know it was a joke, but I just wanted to put it in more perspective when regards to Tremaine Edmonds, because I think a lot of people like to pile on. I want to go to the comment that Jason made that I'm seeing everybody talk about in regards to Tremaine Edmonds. So Jason, here's the comment here saying, Edmonds gets unnecessary hate because on the broadcast angle, fans often don't see where he is and what he does. I dislike the Edmonds disrespect and misunderstanding of his role in this D versus Milano's. That deserves a clap for Jason. Well done. the All-22 does so much in terms of illuminating where guys are in terms of like where you can see them play and what their role is and being able to understand how they function and what they're doing in that play and in that responsibility. And granted, it can be tough sometimes too. Like, I think I have a pretty good understanding of the NFL and of football in general, but it's tough to watch a play and know like, okay, this is exactly what the coverage was, or this is exactly what the call was. This was his responsibility. This was his assignment. We still don't know a lot of the time. So a lot of it is us putting these puzzle pieces together and understanding, okay, this is what it looks like his job was, his responsibility was for any player. And then there's also certain things that, regardless of not knowing the assignment or the call, you're just able to grade and able to read. Like, it doesn't matter what the call is. If you can't get off a block, you can't get off a block. It doesn't matter what the call is. If you get juked out of your shoes, you get juked out of your shoes, so on and so forth. But yeah, I think Edmonds has been better than people give him credit for. But again, he was a high draft pick. He had a ton of potential, and he plays a high-profile position for a coach who's had success with players at that position, both in Philadelphia and in Carolina. You know, Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis, Shaq Thompson. McDermott's got a good, strong track record. And then again, going back to guys in Philly like Jeremiah Trotter and all that. So that's where I think a lot of the hate comes from. But really good comment from you, Jason. I'm going to take a sip of water. And I wanted to go to the comment here. Back on Taron Johnson. Yeah, I think this is a prime year for Taron Johnson. He's a free agent after this season. Slot corners typically don't get paid a ton, but they are tremendously valuable in today's NFL, especially with how much of a passing league it is. I would love to see Taron Johnson come back. I don't think we can really afford to lose any depth at the corner position because I don't think we're tremendously deep there after Tre'Davious White and I'll say Taron Johnson. You know, we've got Levi and you've got Dane Jackson, but there's not a lot of top end level depth at the corner position. So I'd rather not lose what we already have. Very good comments there. What else? Oh, good kind of question here and comment from Ben. Taron seems to have improved a lot in coverage. Is it just natural improvement, or do you see him doing something different this year to allow him to stay with his man better? I think a decent amount of it is just natural improvement. I also think some of it is attributed to health. Taron Johnson is someone who plays a reckless style, I guess I'll say, and he is so physical when he comes forward. He gets banged up a lot, whether it's his upper body or his lower body. He's a guy who's consistently had knocks and injuries for this team going all the way back to his rookie year. So I think being at the start of the year, knock on wood, he is a bit healthier, and the healthier you are, usually the better you play. So I think that's got something to do with it too. But I think he seems to be functioning better in this defense. I think as the year went on last year, McDermott and Frazier started to find something a little bit in terms of their alignment and their responsibilities. I also think Aaron Quinn had I mentioned a lot of the Cover One guys a lot. Aaron Quinn had a great comment on Twitter in terms of how symbiotic the relationship is between Taron Johnson and Matt Milano, not just for the Bills, but in any team. The nickel linebacker relationship is very important. Matt Milano being healthy and playing at the level that he's playing at also benefits Taron Johnson. So I think it's a decent amount of him being healthy, but also the natural progression that he's made and his fit in this defense. He has a good natural fit for this defense. His skill set and his style meshes very well with what the Bills want to do on defense. And when you combine that with other players playing at top levels like Matt Milano, like Micah Hyde, like Jordan Poyer, I think we see why Taron Johnson's starting to do well, but I think he deserves the credit one way or the other, because a lot of it is just on him. For granted, he's a good fit and that he gets schemed up well and coached up well, but he's made a lot of improvements. And comment here from Dylan: Taron at times really plays like he doesn't care one bit about his own physical well-being. It's wild to watch. Yeah, he just comes through and just throws his body into contact, whether it's making a tackle, whether it's taking on a block, whether it's blowing up, a screen or a play, or trying to funnel something back inside or spill it outside. It's wild. He plays with reckless abandon. It's impressive, but also kind of scary and nerve-wracking. Another couple guys that I wanted to get to, people who I've talked about multiple times this offseason. One of them was my breakout guy for this year. I want to talk about Groot, and I want to talk about AJ Epinesa. So Groot, something that I didn't expect. this year from Groot. I didn't expect him to be playing at the level that he was, and also the snap share that he's got. Groot has a 60.9% snap share on the defensive line. AJ Epinesa, 40.8. AJ Epinesa leads the Bills with 11 pressures. Groot is second with 9. AJ leads the team with 8 hurries. Groot is second with 7. Groot leads the team with 2 sacks. He's also second on the team with 8 stops. He's second only Matt Milano, who's first with 9. Tremaine Edmonds is third with 7. Fun fact. AJ Epinesa is second on the team in overall defensive grade and also pass rush grade. Also, first in overall defensive grade and pass rush grade is Matt Milano. And Groot, again, leads the Bills' defensive line in snap share. He's got a 60.9% snap share, like I mentioned. Ed Oliver is second at 59.8. Jerry Hughes is third at 55.3. Ooh, Puka throwing it out there. Groot, the best defensive end in this draft. I don't know yet. I don't want to make a statement or a full concrete declaration after 3 weeks, but he has shown a lot this year already. And you know, a lot of the numbers and metrics I just read off were pass rush related. I think one of the benefits that we hadn't seen was his run stopping ability, his ability to use that long arm and use his length and use his size in the run game. We saw a play, I think it was on the touchdown run from Heineke earlier in that drive. They ran like a toss to that side, and Rousseau just maintained the edge and walked his blocker into the lane of the running back and spilled Gibson to have to go outside, and Poyer just came screaming up and made a tackle. Rousseau has done a lot of that, as evidenced by his 8 stops. Also, for reference, a stop is considered basically like a tackle that's or a play that's a win for the defense. So if you make a tackle on first down that holds the ball carrier to 40% or less of the total yardage needed to get a first down. On second down, I believe it's 60% or less. And then on third down, if it's a tackle that doesn't result in a first down or a touchdown. So that's what stops are. You've got a lot of good, defensive ends as rookies right now. Mark just mentioned Kwity Paye is a good one out there in Indy. I also like Odafe Owe, formerly Jason Owe, out of Penn State, playing for Baltimore. He's had a good year so far too, but Groot is playing really well in the pass rush and in the passing game, but also in the run game. Again, he's setting the edge. He's using his size and his length to affect the run, and he's doing something on almost every play. And where's the comment there from Jason? That's exactly it. Jason said, I didn't expect Groot to play so smart for a rookie. It's kind of crazy. I completely agree. I fully recognize the potential and the ceiling that he had as a prospect, but I didn't know how pro ready he would be. And I mean that in terms of I didn't know how much impact he would have this year. And I think rightfully so. He didn't have a ton of experience at Miami. He sat out all of last year. And granted, I know he worked and did a lot of things, but who knew what a raw prospect who was inexperienced. He's also inexperienced at his position. He was a safety and wide receiver in high school, so it's not like he's been playing defensive end for forever. I think it was fair to have a lot of question marks and wonder what his career trajectory would be. And not only is he making plays physically, but to Jason's comment, the mental aspect, his understanding of quarterback drops and angles and pursuit and pressure in the pass rush aspect, but also he's showing that in the run game in terms of how he's able to manipulate tackles and guards and linemen and be able to close off holes and gaps and make running backs have to bounce out, or understanding where his support and help is on defense and forcing and flooding and funneling the running backs and ball carriers to that help to allow them to make plays. And it's just wild, to see the trajectory that he's been on so early in his career. And it's really impressive. And I see a lot of people talking about, he's going to be a beast in 2 years or whatever. Right now, he's on a good trajectory. I potentially hope so. Question here from Lone Wolf. If Epinesa's numbers are for the most part better than Groot's and Hughes, why isn't he getting more playing time? I think one, because he's had less snaps, his numbers could potentially be better because, again, if he's making good plays on less snaps, his grades are going to be higher. His percentages are going to be higher because there's less sample size for things to kind of balance out and regress a little bit. 1. 2, I think the way the Bills are using him is more situational. I think Groot his body type and his length, I think he's built more for an every down role, as is Jerry Hughes. I know Jerry Hughes has at times everybody, likes to rip him for, run support and setting the edge or vacating, quarterback contain and things. But Jerry's a very smart player and he's good with his responsibility and setting the edge and affecting things in the run game. I think they've used Epinesa more as a specialist at this point in his career, and he's been successful with that smaller sample size, thus his numbers and his metrics, again, because he's been so successful in less reps, his numbers and his metrics get jacked up even higher because there's less opportunity for him to be successful, but there's also less opportunity for him to not be as good and not stand out as much and then drop a little bit. But yeah, I was surprised to see that, Groot, again, 60.9 snap percentage, AJ Epinesa 40.8, so almost a full 20% less. But I think also matchups dictate it a little bit too. I think we're going to see as we move in this season and based on opponent, I think you could see some of those snap shares fluctuate a little bit. I do expect Epinesa to go up a little bit. But I also think, this is actually what I was just about to talk about. Great question here from Chris. Do you think AJ and Groot eventually become 80 to 90% snap guys, or do we keep the rotation strategy even after Hughes and Addison are gone? I wish I had the numbers handy, but in Sean McDermott's defense with the Bills, I think there's only been like 1 or 2 seasons where somebody has had more than 50 or 60% of the snap share. 80 to 90% is out of the question. I don't think anybody's going to see that in today's NFL, especially on the D line. But I think what they want to do, I think they want to keep that rotation. Even if Hughes and Addison are gone, their philosophy, they want to rush 4. They want to rush 4 and drop 7. Regardless of the coverage they play on the back end, they just want to be able to rush 4. In order to consistently rush 4 and get pressure and affect the quarterback and be able to stay strong and influence things at the point of attack in the run game, you need rotation. You need fresh bodies. You need to consistently dress 9 to 10 defensive linemen on game day and be able to consistently rotate them out to keep them fresh, to rush the quarterback, to be effective in the run game. So I think AJ and Groot are the starters next year. Again, knock on wood. But I still think you'll see rotation. I think at most, say Groot is killing it. Say AJ Epinesa is killing it. And I say killing it, I mean like all pro defensive ends, right? If that happens, maybe they're at like 65% snap share, but I see that as like the ceiling. They want to rotate. They want to keep guys fresh. They love strategy. They love mismatches. They love all those things. I think it's a different piece, a different aspect. And question here from Mark. No, I think Jerry Hughes gets re-signed. A question from Chris. If Bruce Smith was on this team in his prime, would he be a rotational piece? No, he'd be the starter. But, well, 1, I'd have to see what his snap share was when he played. 2, I think the game is different now. It's not that conditioning wasn't important then, but with how pass-oriented offenses are now and how offensive the NFL game is now, it's just hard to see a guy on the field for like 80 to 90% of the snaps and consistently being effective. So I don't want to say Bruce Smith would be a rotational piece. I think he's a heavy starter. I think he's a guy who sees like 70% of the snaps, 65%, 70% of the snaps, depending on game script and scenario and all that. But no, he wouldn't be rotated to the point like everybody else is. He would be more of a locked in every down type of player, but I still think he would be rotated to a degree based on how the NFL is nowadays. I think that's just kind of, how it works for now. But no, Bruce would be, Bruce is, what did you say, Chris? Sorry, I meant starter, but rotating out like the other current guys. I think he would start, but probably rotate less. Again, in his prime, he was the best defensive player in the NFL, so you're not really going to rotate that guy a ton. I still think he would rotate, but far less than what the guys are rotating now because, again, he's a monster. I think he would at some point, again, just because of how the game is played nowadays, but no, he would rotate far less because, again, he would be arguably the best defensive player in the NFL, and you wouldn't want to take him off the field. Last little bit, I just want to talk about Hyde and Poyer. really good. I know we're at the hour and a half mark. Don't want to go too crazy and too in depth into that piece. But Hyde and Poyer always doing their job. Tre'Davious White could also be mentioned and always be mentioned as well. Just, a pure lockdown corner on that side. He's had a good start to the year. But Hyde and Poyer do so much for this defense. I'm really interested to see what happens this weekend. Jordan Poyer did not practice today. This could potentially be a Jaquan Johnson or DeMar Hamlin game against Houston. If Poyer can't go, which I don't want to disrespect the Texans, but I would kind of be a fan of that if we let Poyer sit this week a little bit and allowed him to get healthy for Kansas City next week and then Tennessee the week after that. So I would be a fan of that a little bit in that regard. And the last little bit I wanted to talk about, again, it's not defense related, but I just wanted to mention some things about the offensive line in terms of I'm worried about it. Still, Josh Allen is number one in a bad way. Number one in terms of like the most. So he's number one in number of dropbacks when under pressure at 52. So he's had 52 dropbacks when he's under pressure. For reference, second is Zach Wilson of the Jets at 50. Also tied with Zach Wilson at 50 is Carson Wentz. So two quarterbacks who have been crazily and wickedly under duress this year on not great teams have been pressured on the less dropbacks than Josh Allen. So not great. Granted, a lot of that comes from the Pittsburgh game and the Washington game to a degree, and those are tremendous fronts who, constantly and consistently generate pressure, and we're not going to face fronts like that every week, but I am still a little worried about that. And I don't want to rip on Cody Ford. I thought he had a good first 2 weeks. He did not have a good week against Washington. And at this point, he's second amongst all offensive linemen in total pressures allowed in the NFL. He's got 17 total pressures allowed. But what's crazy is he had 12 against Washington. So he only allowed 5 pressures combined between weeks 1 and 2. And then last week in week 3, he allowed 12. Not a good game for Cody Ford. Looking for a big bounce back game from him against Houston. And I love what Cody mentioned, the speed and the versatility of the Texans front, especially on the interior, being able to potentially attack the Bills guards, Feliciano and Ford. This could be a game where Ford has the opportunity to show up a little bit, but also be threatened. Maybe not threatened on the scale of Daron Payne and Allen and Chase Young and Hayward and TJ Watt and all those guys who were just crushing it for Pittsburgh and Washington, but threatened enough to the point where he's facing good competition. Let's see how he responds. So I really want to see how that kicks up. I also have several other metrics. Again, we're at the hour and a half mark. I don't want to bog it down too much, but I've also got a lot of metrics when it comes to pressures allowed in the offensive line and what Josh Allen has been seeing. I'm going to tweet out a whole bunch of that. So follow me on Twitter at pro__ant. I will be putting out a lot of that stuff as we move forward in the rest of this week. That wasn't just a plug. I just thought of it now, but I'm going to tweet out a bunch of that stuff. And just to throw a couple more things in regards to the Houston Texans. I mentioned some of it with Cody, but I just wanted to throw it out for you guys here. Again, I'm going to be tweeting it out, a lot of this stuff, and breaking some more things down on Twitter, but it's interesting to see what the Texans do on defense. I mentioned it with Cody. They are in a 4-man rush 90% of the time, which is first in the NFL. Again, they've only blitzed 6% of the time, which is 31st in the NFL. They're in nickel 54% of the time, and then base 4-3 defense 42% of the time. I don't think that base defense is going to work against the Bills. I think you're going to see more nickel. I don't think the Texans can survive in a 4-3 base against Diggs and Beasley and Manny Sands and Gabriel Davis and even Dawson Knox. I don't see that potentially working out for them. They are coached by Lovie Smith. They've been playing a lot of man coverage this year. They've been in man coverage 61% of the time, which is first in the NFL. Crazy high number. I appreciate it, Steven. Steven coming through clap it up for Steven, everybody. First time viewer of the show. Welcome to the live show, and thank you for engaging. And also thanks for the really nice comments, Steven. Steven said, good job, Anthony. First time viewer and enjoyed. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. Thank you for stopping by. And thank you for the kind words. Thank you all around. 61% of the time, the Texans have been in man coverage. I thought Lovie Smith, Tampa 2, Chicago Bears, Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs, that, Peanut Tillman, Tim Jennings, that whole defense playing Tampa 2 coverage. Nope. They've been in man coverage 61% of the time. which is very high. They're going to run that 2 high shell. So on Sunday against the Texans, expect them to rush 4, play man coverage behind it with 2 high safeties. Maybe they throw in a little more zone, just because I don't think they can stay with the Bills if they run man too much. I don't think that's going to work. But regardless, expect to see a lot of 4-man rushes and expect to see a lot of 2 high safeties from the Houston Texans. Also, just in general, teams this year when playing the Bills, Eric Turner and I talked about in the film room last night, which if you haven't watched that episode, check that out. We broke down Josh Allen and a lot of success the Bills offense had against Washington. The Bills were blitzed. Josh Allen was blitzed last year at about 37.8%. This year, it's at 18.8%, so about 20% less teams are blitzing Josh Allen and the Bills this year. So we're seeing a lot of teams play more coverage to try and stop the Bills offense in general, and then also combined with what Houston likes to do, where they're the second least blitzing team in the entire NFL. They want to just run 4, and they're going to play man coverage behind it with a 2 high shell. I expect to see a lot of that in this game. Mark in the comments, they're saying a Cole Beasley game. I think whoever in the slot does well, whether it's Beasley, whether it's Manny, whether they put Diggs in the slot. I just don't. And granted, I know they have Desmond King, who I like a lot. But I think if they stay in that 4-3 base too much, the middle and the slot is going to get taken advantage of. I also don't think they have the horses on the outside to cover regularly. That's been a focus for them. Tremont Smith, Texans corner, mentioned how Allen has a great arm and he can make pretty much every throw or any throw on the field. And he said they have to be real sticky this week when it comes to Diggs and Beasley and how explosive those guys are. Oh, man. I appreciate you, Dylan. Thank you so much for the donation and the kind words with the great show tonight. You were also awesome with, first of all, being here and engaging, but also a lot of your comments were insightful and, really great. So thank you so much for the donation and being here overall, Dylan. I appreciate you. The Texans know what they're up against in the Bills' weaponry. And see, then to Ben's point too, I honestly think we could see in this Texans game a lot of what we saw against Washington. I think you could see 3 receivers above 75 yards receiving. I think you could see Diggs over 100. I think you could see Beasley at 70-something, Manny at around 80 to 85. If Gabriel Davis is healthy, maybe he's around that mark as well. I think you're going to see 325 to 350 passing yards from Josh Allen. I just don't see how, given the personnel that the Texans have and the scheme that they want to play, I don't think it matches up well with the Bills offense, combined with what Cody mentioned and what I mentioned earlier in the episode. Justin Reed, who's a really good safety for the Texans, even if he plays, he's banged up. They're a much worse defense when he's not on the field. So if he's not there, I think that makes things even worse for them, potentially for the Texans. So I don't think it's a great matchup in that regard. And then just a couple other metrics and things that I wanted to mention. Overall, looking at the Texans offense, they're in 12 personnel, so 1 running back, 2 tight end, 32% of the time, which is 4th in the NFL. They're in 13 personnel, 13% of the time, which is the 3rd most in the NFL. And then they're in 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end, 44% of the time, which is 26th in the NFL. They're in shotgun 78% of the time. They do short drop backs 69% of the time, and they're a zone running team primarily, with zone runs being 62% of the time for the Texans offense. So I think we're going to see a little heavier game plan from the Texans. I think they're going to run more 2 tight end sets. Cody mentioned the tight end core that the Texans have and how they like it. So I expect to see a decent amount of 2 tight end sets coming out here against the Bills defense for the Texans offense, which makes me think maybe we see a little more AJ Klein potentially, but I think Taron Johnson, with his skill set, he's equipped to easily handle, 12 personnel and come off the edge and support the run game and blitzes and all that kind of stuff. So overall, again, I want to continue to mention that I'm going to be tweeting out a lot of advanced metrics and stats and more context things tomorrow and maybe even tonight as we progress through the week in regards to the Texans. Just some stuff that, again, I want to be able to paint that full picture of what this matchup brings, but it's going to be an interesting game. The Texans have some players that could potentially pose threats. I thought Cody did a great job of highlighting the guys on both offense and defense who can present those threats to the Bills. But at the end of the day, I don't think they have the right scheme or the horses in that scheme to really threaten the Bills. I know somebody mentioned covering the spread. The spread is 17 points. And as I take a sip of water here, any 17-point spread scares me. I hate that. I don't think I want to go anywhere near that. But it potentially could happen. I see the Bills being able to put up points on this defense. Again, a Texans defense that wants to run man coverage and play in a too high shell and only rush 4. If you're only going to rush 4 against the Bills and Josh Allen, your front 4 has to get there, because if it doesn't, he's going to sit back and pick you apart. So, I don't think it's a great matchup for the Texans defense against the Bills offense. And then offensively for the Texans, as Cody mentioned, potentially them taking the reins off of Davis Mills a little bit this week. Who knows what that leads to for the Texans, but I don't necessarily think with the level that the Bills defense has been playing at, I don't think taking the reins off of Davis Mills presents this huge threat. They've been inconsistent with their running game, as Cody alluded to and Cody mentioned as well. So I think we see a strong performance from the Bills defense. And I think this is another get right game and another momentum builder and another, kind of oiling the machine a little bit to get prepped and get ready to take on Kansas City on Sunday night next week, and then Tennessee on Monday night the week after that. Not looking past Houston at all. Sean McDermott mentioned that today, saying that, if you look past any team in the NFL, you're going to get your butt kicked. So they're focused on Houston. But it'll be interesting to see what we get from the Houston defense and the Houston offense. Again, I just don't think the matchups really dictated. And also, I saw somebody mention here, and I wanted to look at my notes here, Puka mentioned, let's see a 100-yard rusher this game. The Texans not traditionally, but this year they've had a light box 61% of the time. So light in the box, potential opportunity for Singletary and Moss to run out of 11 personnel or run out of shotgun. I really like the games that Zach Moss has been stacking together the last 2 weeks. So it'll be nice to see him be able to continue that momentum this week as well. But it's going to be a fun game. I'm really excited. And I think we all are excited at this point too, especially now that week 1 is a little bit behind us. And I'm going to throw up the Toodles, you guys banner right now, because we're going to start to wind down. I want to give everybody enough time to breathe before the Cover 1 Buffalo show starts at 9:00 with Greg and Aaron. This episode was awesome. Super tremendously grateful to Cody Davis, again, from the Locked On Texans podcast and the Texans Wire, for coming on the show. I love how supportive you guys were of him. He was awesome. Just, again, his knowledge and insight of the Texans was next level. He provided scheme thoughts and player thoughts and how it all connected. His insight on Tua and the potential Deshaun Watson situation, I thought was really, really insightful. And he's a really good follow. He's a great dude as a person in terms of like his content, his creation. Go and give him a follow. And oh man, that's awesome, Jason. Jason saying amazing stream. Thank you for your time, man. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate you. And only second to Cody is my appreciation for all you guys, riding with me live on this episode. Again, the engagement tonight was awesome. The live viewers were tremendous. I really appreciate you guys riding with me live this entire episode. Again, we went a little longer than we thought. We're sitting here in an hour 42, and I appreciate you guys being here this entire time. We've actually gone up in viewers and been more steady as this episode has gone on. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And if you're watching later, listening later, whatever have you, thank you for your listen, your download, your view, whatever. Please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage and to Cover 1. I love what Chris is saying right now, saying hit the like button. I love what Ben is saying, smash that like button, friends. Ant deserves the love. I appreciate you so much, Ben. Thank you so much. You too, Chris. And awesome from Mark saying, thanks, Ant. Sorry for keeping you. Never apologize for keeping me. I would do 5-hour shows if, actually, I probably could at some point. But I don't want to run too much into the Cover 1 Buffalo show tonight. You guys were awesome. The engagement was tremendous. The appreciation, the love for myself, for Cody, for Cover 1 has been great. Again, please rate and review and subscribe to Cover 1 Disguise Coverage. Drop a like on your way out. Do not forget, One Pie Pizza, best pizza in Buffalo. The link to the menu is in the description of this episode. Click it. Get yourself some One Pie Pizza. Tell them that Disguise Coverage and Cover 1 sent you. Again, I love their philosophy of do one thing and do it right and do it better and do it perfect. That's what it is. And their one thing is pizza. Delicious pizza, delicious homemade blue cheese. It's fantastic. I love it. Chris come in saying here, I think Ant never leaves that room. I kind of wanted to make a joke, but no, I do leave this room all the time. But you never know. I actually like this room. It's really fantastic. But that's beside the point. Jeff asking if One Pie Pizza delivers to Rochester. I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe call him and ask him, or maybe you should drive here. I promise you, it is well worth the drive. Get yourself some One Pie Pizza. Nothing goes better with Bills football or anything better than pizza. Watching a ballet, pizza. Enjoying the night, pizza. Watching AEW Dynamite tonight, pizza. Whatever. Get yourself some One Pie Pizza. It's delicious. I appreciate you guys again, all your listens, downloads, support, praise, everything. You guys were awesome tonight. I could probably go on for another hour and how much I appreciate you guys as always. Thank you so much. Please rate and review and subscribe. Give me a follow on the old Twitter. I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and all staying safe. And I will see you guys next week. And as always, go Bills.